Hey guys, it's Todd. Thanks so much for stopping by songsareforsinging.com. You're listening to the Tips and Tricks podcast, these little episodes where we talk about how you can be a better worship leader. Well, my message for you today in this episode is simple, and it's this: have a Riker. If you ever watched Star Trek The Next Generation, you'll remember this. Back in the day, that particular episode, the Enterprise was led by Captain Jean-Luc Picard, and yet he had this guy, William Riker, who was known as the first officer. And that's why Picard would call him number one. He was the first officer. And Riker was an interesting character because a lot of the things that Riker did, you didn't really see. You just sort of learned right quick when you watched the show that Riker kind of handled all of the other stuff that Picard either couldn't get to or didn't have time for. Riker was the second in command, and he handled a lot of stuff that was important, but that the captain couldn't really get to. As a worship leader, it's very important for you to have a Riker, for you to have a second in command. Now, this doesn't mean another worship leader, doesn't mean necessarily another musician, but rather someone who can handle some of the other responsibilities of worship that you may not be able to get to. I'll give you an example from my church. About a year and a half ago, I realized that in our weekly service, there were a lot of things that I just wasn't able to get to. Things like scheduling the tech team, making sure videos and slides were put in correctly, sound cues, making sure the foyer was the lights were on and the video was running. All of those sort of things that kept kind of slipping through the cracks that I couldn't get to or I'd forget about. And there was a guy in our tech team at the time. His name was Jason. And so I asked Jason if he would consider moving up to sort of being a tech team overseer. And Jason was, he was a little, he wasn't real sure if he wanted to do it, but he said, okay, let's try it for a month. Let's see if this works. And I want to tell you, having Jason to operate in that role has been life-changing for us at Bethel. Jason handles so many things now and handles them so much better than I ever could. Jason handles the scheduling of the tech team, making sure that everything is set up and ready to go on a Sunday morning. And even in doing that is training all of his tech guys to think that way as well. And so as a worship leader, you may not have that. I want to encourage you to do that. I want to encourage you to have have someone that you can hand off some of those responsibilities to, and also some authority. So in our context, Jason has the ability to say yes or no to some of these tech things. I trust Jason, and he's proven himself time and time again. And it is so helpful to me to know that I've got that guy back there making sure that everything runs smoothly. How do you do that? I mean, how do you find a Riker? How do you find a second? And how do you ask them? And what happens? Well, it's real simple. Here's what I think. I think that those people that have that ability, I think it's obvious. I think if you look at your tech team or maybe some of your musicians, you probably could already think, you know what? They could, with a little training, with a little experience, they could do this. They could probably take on more responsibility. It's not too hard to find those people or to see the potential in them. The hard part is, how do you make that transition? And so here's what I would recommend. I would recommend when you talk to a person about this and you think, okay, God, this is who you want me to promote, so to speak. You want me to use them. When you go and talk to those people, here's what I'd do. I'd encourage you to be very, very honest. So when I initially asked Jason, I didn't even know clearly what all the job would entail. I knew it was going to take a little more time. I knew it was asking him to volunteer and to be more active, to be here earlier, to be a little more on, so to speak. But I didn't have a lot of clarity. And so I basically told Jason the things that I knew, but I left it open. And I told Jason, hey, as we do this thing, as responsibilities come up and as you see different needs and different opportunities, let me know about them. And so that's what I'd recommend. If you want to have this conversation with someone, just be honest. Share the things that you know are needs, but also be very honest. You're really asking them to be a partner with you in making the quality of your service better. So that's the first thing. The first thing is I'd just be honest. The second thing I'd suggest is this: give yourself a probationary period. So when you ask the person to get involved, go ahead and set a date in the future, a month or two out, where you both agree to analyze how it's gone and to talk about what's worked and what hasn't, how the job could be changed. If it just didn't work at all, then hey, let's go back to the way it was. Let's forget we even did this. But give yourself that opportunity to analyze it, because here's what will happen. They will have seen things that they can now feed back to you, and you will get even a better idea of what the position entails, what the specific challenges are. I am so glad that Jason stepped up and did this. It has been a great blessing to me. Jason and I have become much closer as friends because of it, because we're working so closely together on Sunday mornings, and it frees me up to focus on maybe the musicians, maybe getting with the pastor before the service, all of these sort of things that I need to be doing on Sunday morning. I can now focus my energy on because I have a Riker over there. I have a second. I have a guy who's handling those sort of things. If you're interested in that and maybe you want to know, well, hey, what does this guy Jason do? I'd love to hear from you. You can email me, toddwrightband@gmail.com, or you can tweet me @toddwrightband. And you can also use that contact information if you've got things you'd like to hear me talk about in the podcast. Maybe you've got a question, maybe you got a comment, be sure and send it our way. We'll see you next time.